Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Economic Times live webinar on the topic Driving Business Value of Storage. The session is powered by Dell Technologies and Ashtec Infotech India. I am Dimple Bajwa from ET Edge, welcoming you all to this session. With data growing exponentially, enterprises handle massive amounts of business-critical data. They require storage systems that are highly scalable, offer unlimited connectivity, and support multiple platforms. In today's time, there are multiple approaches to data storage to choose from. In the era of digital transformation, organizations of all sizes are challenged to meet higher performance, agility, availability, and scalability requirements, while staying within strict budgetary constraints. Adapting to the demands of digital transformation is not a choice anymore, at least for organizations moving towards data-centric business models. To best support the business on its digital transformation journey, IT must be able to respond faster to take advantage of changing market conditions and new business opportunities, and also enabling increased use of big data and analytics, more personalized interaction with customers, around-the-clock operations, and better use of innovation to drive competition differentiation. Today's live webinar powered by Dell Technologies and Ashtec Infotech India will highlight topics including enabling development and business activities through enhanced storage availability and agility, improving employee productivity levels by delivering better application performance, reducing storage costs for running equivalent applications by leveraging increased access to flash storage, requiring less IT storage staff time for day-to-day activities by improving performance levels and delivering new software-based management capabilities. We have a power-packed panel to take us through this important topic today, ladies and gentlemen. Join me in welcoming the speakers for today's webinar. We have with us today Sachin P. Rane, Executive Vice President, Head Software Solutions, Datamatics Global Services.
Hi.
Amol Patel, VP and National IT Manager, Infra, QA and Governance, Liberty General Insurance.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
So, Salender Tomar, Lead Storage Business, Channels, Dell Technologies.
Hello, everyone.
And Saureen Shah, Managing Director, Ashtec Infotech India. And the session will be moderated by Sheena George, partner EY. Without further ado, I now invite Sheena to take it from here. Over to you, Sheena. Sheena, I believe you're on mute. You're not audible.
Not audible.
While we wait for Sheena, Mr. Saureen, would you like to begin by some introductory words?
Sure. So good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So I represent a company called Ashtec Infotech India, and we are based out of Bombay. And we've been in this IT and system integration business for the last 33 years. And we partner with multiple OEMs, bringing various technologies to our customers. And we cater across SME, mid-enterprise segments to the large enterprises and large banks in Bombay, Ahmedabad, Pune, and the Western India. And we do service delivery across India. So that's a little bit introduction of Ashtec to all of you. And today we are going to discuss about storage and the new technologies in this very changing world of digital transformation. So let's hear everyone and let's see what we can help you with. Thank you. this is what happens. You practice and the systems go down when you live.
So, nevertheless, I'll take the lead here. I'll introduce myself. Uh, I'm part of Dell Technologies, which you know is a conglomerate having entire breadth of IT infrastructure portfolio, starting from servers, storage, data protection, network technology, which can be purchased separately or an integrated solution in a converged or hyper-converged infrastructure that we look at. And we deliver a single pane of glass management for complete IT infrastructure solutions through our partners like Hashtag here. And I take care of storage business for the channel community at India. And having said that, I would request Mr. Sachin to share some background about himself being a speaker here, and followed by Mr. Amol.
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Sachin Rane. I look after the IT services business worldwide for Datamatics. We Datamatics for last 11, close to 11 years. Prior to that, 21 years with Wipro. So overall, 32 plus years of experience. Happy to be part of this panel and happy to share some of my thoughts on the topic that we have. Very interesting one, because I think story is something which you like. You take it for granted, but it's very critical component of any transformation or any transactional system, right? So I think I actually very happy that we are discussing this in this forum. Very critical topic actually. So looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you. Back to you, Satinder.
Thanks, Sachin. Thank you very much. I hereby invite Amol. Amol, we have some welcome words from you and now.
So thank you, Sachin and Shailendra. Again, my name is Amol Patil. I work with Liberty General Insurance. So I come from this insurance sector. And again, as a panelist, obviously I will be sharing my thoughts, right? How Dell is helping, right? And all these cutting edge storage technologies is changing the game. And I'm here also to obviously learn from this group, right, about new ways, right, and cutting in technologies, and probably get some knowledge myself.
Okay. Thanks, Amol. Thank you. So while the time Sheena joins in back with this technical glitch, so I take the liberty to have some interaction with you, Sachin, and about your experience, what you have been through. So, like you have seen last 2 years kind of things, what has happened in the industry, within the organization, outside the organization. So how are you planning to, or you have already modernized your IT infrastructure, specifically around storage? Because the storage requirements are very exponentially increasing and the workloads are very diversified. Okay. So what are some of the most desired new technologies which you have already invested in or you are looking to leverage basis your past experience? Like you have a good experience around the system integration side, being an end user side. So your thoughts on that?
Sure. So thanks. I think it's a very good question. So I just want to bring two perspectives. One is the external view, and the second one, which is internal. So external is something which we work with customers globally. So I just want to bring that view, as well as what we intend to do and where we are as far as internal data analysis is concerned. So I think the data, the thrust on storage is only going up. So, for example, I'll give statistics. So, for the IDC, the analyst from IDC says that there is an increase to the tune of 16.6% in store data between 2019 and 2020. And as we know that these were like years of pandemic, and then there was a huge demand in terms of digital transformation, and models have changed, like working from home has become more prevalent. So entire dynamics have changed, right? So the one view that I want to bring, which is which my customer tells me, which are especially the experience is pretty much unique across the world. There is a thrust on digital transformation, which also means that you need digitization. What I mean by digitization is basically converting all your physical into physical documents into a digital form. be it a PDF, be it a scanned document, be it an image, but ultimately it will get stored as a digital asset. And for that, the thrust or demand on storage has gone up exponentially. And I just give some statistics. For example, a couple of our customers, one of our customers is looking at more than 10 million documents to be scanned. Another of
Wow.
customers, we were looking at 2 million documents to be scanned. And actually, we already done like 2 million documents scanned and completely digitized. And I see that with government of India. I mean, if I talk of India context, government of India is pushing a lot of digital initiative, which means that the demand on digitization is only going to grow up and up in next few years. So external view is that the storage needs to cater to such increasing demand, which means that the storage has to be simplified, has to be simply scalable, has to be manageable. And at the same time, the latencies, the issues of latencies or reliability have to be absolutely taken care of. So this is one view which is external. From an internal point of view, I think from work from home actually has put more of demands like you need a lot of backups, you need disaster recovery in place. So from that perspective, what we're looking at is we are evaluating some technologies and also some vendors in terms of who can give us like a self-managing flash storage, for example, or a hyper-converged infrastructure, which means your network, compute, and storage is integrated and can be well managed. We're also looking at cloud file sharing, and we're also looking at storage as a service. So this basically that these are the few things that we're looking at from an evaluation point of from a storage. If that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sachin. That's certainly a good input that you have shared with us. And like we say, a question evolves from answers, right? So a similar question to you again. When you mentioned that you are evaluating all flash technology, right? As we know, the market is moving towards all flash because everybody is looking for the speed and lowest latency, right? And how's your thought on choosing true all flash? Because moving away just from the hybrid, pure NVMe kind of setup, and where you got high IOPS and everything. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think it has to be done. I mean, basically, price performance is something which we want to look at. Like obviously, you can get best of technology, but then it comes at a price. So how much is our budget and whether it can fit in our budget? Obviously, all vendors are good, but then some vendors have very good technologies. Like for example, Dell has a. I personally have experienced Dell technology, so pretty good technology. So we are looking at price performance, and obviously we'll take a decision based on and obviously we'll take some help experts like you in this process.
So thanks, Sachin. I'll answer that. The business value proposition that comes from the OEM side, our customer looks into in terms of budget, TCO, everything. So I'll come back to you. So in the meantime, would like to welcome Sheena back.
Thank you, Shalander. I hope everyone
Okay.
can hear me now.
Yes. So over
Sorry.
to you. No problem, Sheena. That always happens because you need to check your backend system, which is that working upon. So you must look into the high availability setup there.
Absolutely.
Good one.
Okay. So
Point.
over to you, Sheena. Take the lead now, please.
Thank you, Shalander, and thank you so much, Sachin. I heard the last part of the conversation, and I think you ended it on a very good note. Yeah, price and performance is a key decision factor, and there are so many vendors out there. And thank you for acknowledging, Dell's, product suite. But you ended on a good note, which is there's lots of technology, and the best of technology comes at a price. So there is an ROI conversation that we should have at some time during this roundtable. But without much ado, let me quickly call in Amol. Amol, if you can just unmute yourself and come in. The insurance industry, right, as you know, I mean, is a very regulated one. And quickly moving the pivot from this conversation from technology and infrastructure, available out there to data security. Would you like to share your journey with us and particularly talk through us how your cloud or storage strategy helped you achieve compliance in terms of data security, privacy, and the regulatory needs that the insurance industry has to cope with?
Probably I'll take a cue from Sachin, right? He mentioned there are lot of data, right? And insurance industry is one who deal with lot of data, be it claims document, health records, right? And these are all physical copies in nature. And as part of our digitalization journey, right, we are supposed to store this data for many, many years. I think by regulation, right, we cannot just wipe out data, which is 1 year old, 2 year old. We have to keep on, right, storing this data. One of the important factors with respect to security is encryption at rest, right, which is of extreme importance nowadays, right? How you encrypt your data, and this is where, right, new age, right, storage devices, right, come into picture where they can actually perform this activity off the shelf, right? Controller itself can encrypt, right, at the rest. So this is a kind of a technology which I believe is disruptive and can be leveraged. With respect to our journey, Liberty, we are completely into cloud, right? And with that comes a lot of benefits with respect to compliance, right? SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, you name it, right? All these leading cloud vendors, Azure or AWS, come up with all these certifications. So you don't have to worry at least about regulatory aspect and security of your data. But there is aspect where you have your local storage, right? Your end users will be storing this important data on their machines, and you will still need, right, some storage, right, locally to store all this data and even encrypt it, right, so that people don't misuse it. So this is where, right, we are leveraging, right. Personally, we have EMC storage, right. Along with that, right, the good thing is the service part, right, with respect to Dell, impromptu service, right. You don't have to worry about partner like Dell, right, EMC, right, which is important factor, supportability for people like me.
Understood. That was useful, Amol. So you definitely mentioned about the complexity that the insurance industry has. You have needs to store data for several years to be compliant, and you have to store physical copies also along with it, which means that I'm presuming from a strategy perspective, you will have some storage in-house, or is it all completely in cloud, or are you having a hybrid?
Yes, so it's a hybrid. I don't think you can go full on cloud, right? Though application resides over there, but I think hybrid is the trend, right? You will have some sort of data even in traditional data center, and this is where we leverage all these technologies which is coming, right?
Okay. And how have you managed the integration of your cloud and on-premise applications? How has that journey been? Is it an evolving journey, or have you already established, a full connection from that perspective?
Yes, it's a evolving journey, right? With respect to digital asset, whatever we have, right, it is on cloud. But as I mentioned, though this digital asset sits there, you will have to have local data for people to operate on. And this data, end of the day, ends up in storing into SAN devices, right? So again, this is the nature of business, and you have to adopt hybrid, right? You cannot go with one set of right, what do you call it, technology, so to say.
Understood. Thank you so much, Amol. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's been insightful. I'm going to quickly pull in Soren here. Soren, Amol highlighted that many of our enterprises have to be in a hybrid model, because like the insurance industry, many of the industries, and Sachin will testify because they'll have many clients in various industries, the mode is more and more hybrid. It's not feasible to go full cloud, which brings with it the challenge that how are all these talking together? And Amol mentioned that it is still an evolving journey, and probably that's generally true. But how does a client get a unified view? When you have such a diverse infrastructure.
True. So Sheena, I mean, the whole digital transformation journey got speeded up because of the COVID situation.
True.
And that's when everybody realized that we need to kind of digitize our processes, because most of the workforce is working from home, right? And this workforce, as Gartner predicts, is that at least 20-25% of the workforce may never return back to work. They'll continue to work from outside or from home. And hence, it became imperative for most customers to kind of embark upon a digitization process, which also meant security, getting networks at different places, good VPN connections. And because workforce works from home, you need to back up their storage. And the best way to back up their storage is on the cloud, because you may have, difficulties with your VPN connectivity or bandwidths, and over the internet is much easier. And most of the cloud SaaS offerings from multiple vendors of backup products, and including the cloud providers, there are enough endpoint backup solutions which provide security and encryption of data. So I think a lot of people have adopted that for the workforce. Coming to the hybrid technology, I mean, there are many products in the last 2 years, if you really look at it in the marketplace. Most manufacturers, OEMs, have come out with hybrid technologies where you can, like from Dell, you have Unity and some of the other products where you can seamlessly connect into the cloud if you need to expand or if you need to burst your storage into the cloud. And similarly, other NetApp or Hitachi or HP, whoever you talk about, most of them have come out with such products. So I think hybrid technology is new, but I think most people are slowly adopting it. And every customer, based on their needs, because it depends on how large the database is and how large their data is and how much more data they are really adding onto it. That will define the hybrid story. Because for a lot of mid-sized organizations or SME, it is not the story. It is just a story on-prem. But I think they will have challenges because these days we have big challenges on manpower. Talent is not available. So for a lot of small companies to actually hire talent and retain and do things on their own is becoming far more difficult. And eventually people will have to rely on SaaS offerings and service providers who can actually deliver automated backups or storage or encryption or security products. And I think that is where the market is going.
Thank you, Soren. Absolutely makes sense. Thank you for sharing, especially some of those examples of products that are available to help customers seamlessly integrate, a diverse application portfolio when you're on part cloud, part on-premise, from a storage perspective. But I'm going to quickly come to you, Shalinder, and there is and the question which I have ties into an interesting audience question which we have here as well. More and more, because it's becoming difficult to predict what the storage needs will be, and there's obviously a lot of data growth that many organizations are facing with, but probably you don't need that storage all the time. So how is the concept of storage as a service coming along, particularly in India? Do you see that's already being adopted quite in a wide scale basis? And just as an extension of this, the audience question here is, if we don't know what our data storage requirement will be 6 months or 3 years down the line, we don't want to be tied down with too small or too large a box. So what's Dell's recommendation?
That's a very interesting and practical question. Okay, so I'll give you a perspective in terms of a business value first. Okay, so requirement, what is my current requirement and what is going to be in future, it has to match with the business value outcome which we all need to measure upon. Okay, so first and foremost, we need to look at the sizing in terms of the data trending that we are doing. How many users we have connected and what kind of data or the workload is being accessed by the various users. A one-time assessment is always recommended. So it is like when you want to run a fast project on a faster timelines, you have to have a right planning in place. So for the doing that right planning, you should do the right assessment of your workload. You should take a decision today whether you want to work in a hybrid cloud environment. You should look at the ROI calculation. And if you are looking, and today the technology people speak about that they want to work in a virtualized environment, like we all are working in a virtualized environment. So how much workload can be put on virtual machines? So the storage devices should also have such features. They should also be capable of running the hypervisors so that critical workloads can be moved in, moved out, basis your flexible, I will not say volatile needs, but flexible needs. So this is how the culture or the technologies are evolving. And then predictability is very much important. Preventiveness and predictability. These are two categorically features being required by the customers nowadays, that they should be able to predict what they require after 6 months or what would be their requirement after a year based on the current trends available to them. For that, the dependency has to come on artificial intelligence evolving with a machine learning principle built into the devices they use. So this will help them to give them an advanced alert to manage their requirement in the setup. And secondly, the growth engine of the technology they want to have is that it should be scale up and scale out. So if you have something today, then it should have enough slots available when you need the memory upgrades. And then further, it should be in the configuration should be node based so that you can keep on adding the nodes basis your workload requirement. One more thing which I want to suggest, where people say whether I should go on cloud or whether I want to have my storage on prem. So again, we need to see the cost of refactoring. Refactoring means if we are developing applications and putting onto the cloud, then what is the cost involved? That is one. And the repatriation of the data, that what data you want to use on a production requirement or what is you want to keep on an archival requirement. So that balance has to be created, that decision making has to happen in a planning stage. Overall put together, a good planning should be able to execute a good project within a prescribed financial limits. So that you can evolve with your right price for the perfect performance that you are looking at.
Thank you, Shalendar. I think that was well articulated. A couple of, summarizing the points. I think first you said is identify what is the business value outcome that we're trying to achieve, right? That was, I think, one of the first things you said. The second thing you said is to do sizing, look at some of the trends, right? What has been the consumption pattern? What workloads can be where? I think that you said that whether it needs to be on, local, cloud, hybrid, VMs, whatever. And in making a decision, look at the cost of refactoring. And I think those are some good guidelines to start with. Can I come to you, Sachin? And again, this question is from the audience. The question is, there is a lot of information overload, right? Does and I think what they mean here is there's lots of things that one can store. And business requirements and justifications might exist to store everything. So the question is, how do you control storage requirements? And what would you suggest for basis your client experience and maybe your internal experience as well, Sachin?
So honestly, you can't choose what to store, what not to store. It becomes very, I would say, personal and a very political decision as well. And coupled with, if you are in the industry like Amol, who's regulated, you need to have 7 years data, for example. IRDA says that you need to maintain data for so many years, for example. So really, actually, there is no clear answer to as to what you will store, what you will not store, because A, it depends on the industry that you are in. B, it depends on what your requirement from a statutory compliances point of view. Number three, is perhaps you need to take an archival strategy where you take a decision that perhaps for the first, I mean, I'll keep the data, transaction data for maybe 1 year or 2 years, and rest I'll put it in archive mode, right? So depending on the need of your business, you need to strategize your backup and storage strategies.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you for answering that audience question. And I'm going to quickly move to you, Amol, here. Amol, moving the needle of the conversation to a different thing. Now, you mentioned about a lot of data requirements, there's data growth, there's a need from a compliance perspective to store data for a long number of years as well. Now that you have the foundation, which is you have your storage in place, based on your experience, what strategy have you put in place to mine and draw insights from that, right? Whether it is prescriptive or predictive analytics that has helped some real-time decision making for the business. And would you like to talk us through some real-life use cases?
I think analytics is something which is heavily used, right? Especially for fraud detection, right? In insurance industry, it is very, very important. Also, it is very, very important for underwriters, right? Whenever they are assessing the risk, right? A risk profile of a particular customer, right? Whether it is worth indulging into a particular product, right? Or whether to onboard a particular customer or not. To give you an example, right? Even example like money laundering, right? Again, this is a classic case, right? Person maybe getting a big insurance, right? On cash, right? And maybe after 1 month or so, because this is a free look period, right? Asking for refund, which is alarm. Now, obviously, you cannot detect all these cases, right, independently because of massive customer set you have, right? This is where you need all these technologies in place, which can, right, find these patterns, right, and alert underwriters and respective teams. Hey, this is a potential fraud, right, or a red alarm, right, where we need to take action upon, right. This is just one example, right, but there are many cases, right, and patterns what we have developed internally. So again, internal experts develop model and patterns which we find out in whatever data set which we receive, right, and run it across. So it is heavily used, right, though we use cloud storage, right, for doing it, and technologies like data lake, right, which are emerging, which has been leveraged, right, in at least in my organization now.
That's nice. Thank you so much, Amol. And that's an interesting use case on fraud detection, identifying fraud patterns, leveraging the data that you have. Thank you so much for sharing that use case, Amol. Soren, I'm going to come back to you if that's okay.
Right.
We discussed about storage. We discussed about various technologies that are available in storage, and we discussed some use cases on how clients like Amol are leveraging storage that they have to draw all kinds of insights. Earlier on, Mr. Sachin also referred to the whole ROI conversation. From your perspective, basis the work which you are doing for a lot of your clients, Soren, how can clients quantify ROI, right, with regards to their investments on cloud adoption or storage, right? And what kind of financial or commercial models are available today for them to adopt so that their overall TCO can be in control?
Yeah, there are many factors which actually go into finding an ROI. But I think most customers have three kinds of data, right? So they would have their file data, they would have their OLTP data, and they would have unstructured data. And based on the kind of data they have, and especially when it is a file or OLTP, it's pretty known as enterprise data when you are aware of that this is my size of my data and this is the growth the company has, and hence my data will only grow by X percentage. The problem comes when there is unstructured data and where you have exponential growth and there is no control. And as rightly asked, a question asked by one of the participants, how to control the overload. There is no way to control because there's so much data flowing in, right? And the only way to use is object storage and use analytics and ML to kind of do whatever kind of analysis or predictive analysis or uh, any kind of BI tools you want to use to kind of understand that data. Otherwise, that unstructured data has no meaning on that box. But coming back to the ROI, so one has to define based on their quality of data and the kind of data, they need to define a strategy, whether they want an on-prem story or a hybrid story, and whether they really need to burst into the cloud to kind of, because they don't know the data size growth which is coming in. So there are multiple technologies available and the different business models now available. One is, of course, a simple hybrid cloud where you can buy appliances or the storage devices which can support hybrid cloud, and you can possibly burst your extra load into the cloud whenever there is a extra load. Other is you can buy an OpEx based story where every OEM, including Dell, has launched the Apex offering in India. And you could be, if you need 100 TB of storage, possibly you can do a contract for a 70 TB and they will put in another 20, 30 TB on your premises. And as and when you use, it will get metered for you to use. So that cuts your cycle time in terms of buying if you're going to do an on-premise buying process. So it gives you some time and a buffer before your new purchase cycle kicks in for another 90 days or 180 days, depending upon every organization's purchase cycle time. So that is another way of doing it. Then hybrid cloud is obviously there. I think these are the two mostly used storage, or you can use storage as a service, right? And you could buy extra storage whenever you want and add on to it. So depending upon what your balance sheets allow you, what is your objective and financial goal. So a lot of industrial houses and CFOs they want to own assets because they like physical owning of assets. All the new age companies we talk of, the new startups, the IT world, they all want OpEx kind of or the SaaS kind of offering. But the world is moving towards SaaS. More and more, the world is moving towards SaaS. And as long only the very, very critical data people want to really put it on-prem. And correct me wrong, Sachin and Amol, and most other data one would like to use SaaS or cloud offering or a hybrid technology to kind of build it. So for every organization, ROI will differ based on what quality of data, what growth they are looking at, and what is the sensitivity, what is the requirement from a statutory perspective to maintain data. Because when you use technologies like data at rest encryption, there is no dedupe and compression. So you have to do one-to-one storage requirement for a DAR. But for a lot of other, because of NVMe and all flash, today we can actually have 1:4 guaranteed dedupe and compression. And that can really actually help you save the amount of petabytes you need to store your data. So purely use cases are different. And so one can help any of our participants, they can reach out to us or Dell, and jointly we can build a strategy for them to kind of build an ROI for them and help them see through what is their objective and goal. And we can kind of consult and rightly advise what is the best way forward for them.
Thank you, Saurabh. That was well articulated. We discussed Apex SaaS offerings and some of the other things that you mentioned. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Sachin, what would your thoughts be? Like, I'm sure your clients always ask you for the ROI, right? So how would you go about justifying an ROI for the investments that you ask your clients to do?
So I think I like the point which Saurabh talked about, which is as a service, because I think more and more we see, and I agree with you completely that I think the world is moving towards as a service model. So storage as a service was never heard of, right? But now it has become reality.
True.
So what's happening is people are moving towards OpEx rather than CapEx. I think obviously there is a old school of companies and there's a new school of companies. So the world has divided into two parts actually. So from a ROI point of view, I think people are looking at more of not owning the assets, but to use it as a service. From that perspective, I think the ROI becomes more easier to calculate when you operate in an OpEx model. So I see that all the new age company, born in cloud company, all the internet companies, internet-based companies, they are all looking at OpEx, and then they are looking at ROI to be as less as, as simple as it can be, because from their point of view, it's an investors' money that they want to, every dollar has to be accounted for, every rupee has to be accounted for. from that perspective, I think OpEx is the way that every every new age company is adopting, as from my perspective, from what I can see.
Thank you, Sachin. Shalandar, if I want to pull you in for a Dell perspective to this, right? How do you approach your clients? And do you have, when you, especially a new client, would you sell a TCO story saying that if this is what is your spend today, by this much, by moving to a SaaS model or a storage as a service model, this is how much it can come down? Do you, I mean, what do you do for your clients?
So when we look at our clients, so basically the discussion always evolves and revolves around the business value they want to achieve.
Hmm.
So yes, the priority is the ROI, that is the cost model that they are looking at. Okay, but uh, most of the clients, I would say, they always look towards what is the downtime would happen with the solutions that they are buying, right? What is their cost of, what shall be the payback period for that, which talks about the pay per use model that they are looking at, right? And then how much efficiency this would bring into their IT storage teams. So because one has to save money here and there if they are buying a high value system, right? So it is to have a nice balance. So we do propose a customer complete ROI. That is the first thing, that not include the cost of box. It includes the cost of power and cooling facility also. So when we see give a proposition where with our solution they will optimize not only the infrastructure space in terms of power and cooling setup, as well as the technology optimization also helps them. So they look at some 20 to 30% reduction in the cost, which is into the capex perspective, right? That is one thing. Then they want to see that what kind of requirement they are having, that whether they want to take snapshots, inline data reduction capabilities they are looking at, they want to look at the availability and the scalability, or what kind of performance they are looking at. All those kind of aspects helps them to take a right decision onto the technology first. Then comes that storage as a service again. So we've been into this industry for long because we were doing transformational licensing agreement around the backup solutions being proposed to the customers. So that help customers to pay for their software licenses as the number of users increases. Okay, so those were long term licenses, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, that kind of scenario. So when the market evolved towards the infrastructure side or the hardware side, where customers wanted to have a flexible payment options available to them. So we were the one who came up with a leasing options where we own the stuff, we manage the stuff, but customer pay in the EMIs or the quarterly payments, so that they do not invest their time and thoughts towards managing the IT setup. Dell would manage that, all those things for them, or the Dell's partner. So it was a step towards strategic outsourcing that today nowadays most of the companies are living into. ITS is the main sector. Then came the flexibility on demand. So today I need this, tomorrow I want that, and further in future my requirement may go down, may go up, I don't know. So that flexible model has also evolved, and Dell has given that proposition to the end customers also. And of course, the various partners are involved providing those solutions. And one key factor which I wanted to drive here to the audience, that Dell is the current only company which provides in total solutions completely, whether you start from edge to the cloud, anything which comes into including the network also, and that network could be third party. It's not necessary Dell. And again, the migration services of third party component or the managed services of third party component are being provided in form of multi-vendor support by us, as well as with the extended partner ecosystem. We've got more than I would say 200 metal partners, 300 metal partners in the country, which we treat them as solution provider, not resellers. So that's how we help enable our customer to take decisions regarding their purchase request.
Thank you, Shalinder. So you covered a few things. It started with flexible payments. Then you said flexibility on demand, right? And many models have come, which is you mentioned pay as you go, demand on a seasonal basis. And you said talked about strategic outsourcing, where the customer doesn't need to worry about how they manage and maintain. And you just spoke about an interesting concept where you said that you have this complete suite, which is not just your own products and portfolio, but also what the customer needs for an entire ecosystem. Dell takes care of, which is good. But I think also to my question specifically up in the very front, I think what you said is if it's not about only ROI, think about high availability, scalability, and everything. That's where you begin, and then come to cost. That's what you answered. But thank you so much, Shalandra. I think you touched upon edge, so I'm coming to you, Sachin. Right. From your perspective, for both your internal experience as well as your clients, with the growth of edge computing, IoT, coupled with several AI-driven initiatives that are more and more becoming the order of the day, how are storage offerings out there coping to address these large workloads?
So it's a good point. Actually, all these analytics, I would say, whether you talk about AI or whether you call it different, Amol talked about fraud analytics, for example. All the underlying requirement is a massive data to be churned, right?
True.
So what you need a technology like big data, for example, right? So where you can have volume of data, variety of data, and basically you expect data to grow exponentially, right? Now, volume, variety, and velocity. These are the three components of big data. So which means that your storage has to cater to the such demand where data will come in any form at any point of time, and the volume could be enormous. Which means that the basic principle in which this big data, etc., they work on, and I think Sir Chalin talked about is nodes. Like typically you need to have scalable architecture. So you need to have massively parallel processing, which will help you to do analytics faster. And for doing that, what you need a distributed architecture. And the storage also need to cater to something like a distributed architecture. One thing, obviously, I can relate to is about hyper converged infrastructure, where all your three components, which is network or storage or compute, are basically managed, and they're getting converged, but then managed effectively. So hyper converged infrastructure, I think this is one thing which is becoming popular, which can help to manage the kind of volume and variety and velocity of data, which is underlying basic principle requirement of all this big data or analytics.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Sorin or Shalinder, would you want to add to what Sachin said there?
Yeah, I can go for it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, most of the data is unstructured, and even from IoT, if you're pulling out data, and these machines are generating data at every seconds, in fact, milliseconds. So it's very difficult to control this data. And if it is an object storage, then of course there is a issue on speed and scalability sometimes. But with the new all flash and NVMe, things have been able to be managed to a large extent. And of course, AI and ML, as Sachin says, it's critical, and that's the only way to kind of pull out and harness the data out and make any sense out of that data. I also wanted to add on to what Shailendra was talking about ROI. When you're talking of ROI, one is an ROI of just buying an equipment or using it in OPEX mode or CAPEX mode. That is sometimes a financial decision as to how much it is delivering. But there's another angle that whatever data you are kind of going to store and analyze, what is the value it brings to the business and the outcome of the business and the growth for the business. So I think a lot of people don't take that ROI into angle, that if this data I'm going to generate and I'm going to analyze, what is the value which is going to bring to my business, and hence my business will grow and my profitability will grow. So I think a lot of, customers should start looking at data, if it's especially where it is going to help them grow the business. I mean, basic data, which is just meant for statutory compliance, is a different story, but there is data which is required for the business analytics. So I think I wanted to just make the point. And the third point I wanted to make, Shailendra said they have 200 metal partners, but there are very few titanium partners, and Aztec is one of the titanium partners. So no better than Aztec to help any of our customers to kind of build a storage story for them.
Thank you so much, Soren. Amol, you have your hand up. Why don't you go?
All right. I think Sachin and Soren covered a lot of stuff, right? But it is again one point which I would like to add, right? It is not just hybrid, but it is multi-cloud kind of an environment where we are in, and whatever technologies which are available, right? Especially in big data space, right? And I think this trend will continue. Hybrid, right, and virtualization and multi-cloud, right? I've seen people leveraging, especially when in DR space, right? Multi-cloud environments, you may have, right, your main production on maybe AWS and then using Azure as your backup data center, right? Or maybe your traditional data center with hyper converged, as Sachin mentioned, right? Infrastructure being there, right, as maybe primary or secondary. Right. And with respect to ROI, again, it is a decision between CapEx and OpEx, right? Basically, if you have deep pockets, you are ready to spend, right, heavy amount, you go and purchase. But for startups, especially, right, again, it's a startup story in India, which is coming up. I think OpEx model is a way to go, which I believe, I think more and more companies will adopt going forward.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Amol. And I think that's been validated by many of the speakers here as well. We have another audience question. And Shailendra, I'm going to pose this to you. The criteria of identifying better storage solution is very open. Then why customers still need a person to understand and propose a solution? Why can't it be automated, where the customer can go and check on their own by putting some numbers, etc., without any human intervention? I think another way of putting it is what tools and technologies are out there to automate the process of assessing what is the kind of transformation story you need to go for.
Okay, so there are two parts to it. So one is that we all are moving towards do it yourself story now. So every customer wants to create their project of their own. They want to create their own solutions. But the way question has been put across, that it is like they are either dependent on some consultant or some OEM to provide them the right solution, doing the sizing basis their requirement. It's like imposing a solution to the customer. So yes, we have the solution that you can visit Dell website. There are various sizing tools available, analytical tools available, assessment tools available. You can download those free of cost. Do the sizing yourself. Look at the scalability of the solution yourself. Look at the availability of the solution yourself. Uptime calculation you can do, power and cooling space calculation. Everything can be done by the customers themselves. And then further ratification of that solution can be, you can reach out to Aztec, who can do the ratification of that solution for you and then provide you the right commercial solution that you want to look at.
Thank you. So, Sunil, Shailendra's answer is yes, there's lots of automation available for free that can be downloaded from the Dell website and used, but you can't completely do away with talking to Mr. Soren here. I think
Yes,
that's what he's trying to say. No, but we have another audience question. And let me know, Sachin sir, do you want to take it, or even Amol, I'll invite you as well. My production database is on internal storage. If I move it to a storage box, I think maybe the question is, I move it to cloud, will it impact performance? I think that's an interesting thing. What has been your experience from once something is in-house and you move to cloud? Did it impact your storage? I mean, performance?
Yeah. So again, cloud gives you a lot of option, right, in terms of how you want to govern your resources, right? Especially the technology like provision IOPS, right, which are available, right, in basically in every stand storage. And this concept is also there in cloud, right? So you exactly know what kind of a performance which you are expecting from a particular workload, right? You can exactly map, right, as is, right, to cloud. So I don't think it will cause any kind of a performance degradation as long as you are able to map, right? What kind of IOPS requirement you have. For again, for databases, probably you would need high IOPS, and for maybe file storage, you may not, right? Again, it depends on, or maybe for application server, probably less than that. Again, depends on what kind of a workload you have, right? I just want to extend Sheena's point, right? Yes, this self, what do you call, calculation probably will help, but you would really need expert, especially in this area, right? So I would highly recommend, right, involving expert like maybe Sorin or Shailendra, right? When you want to take up any journey or you want to have assessment, right, while you are trying to buy something, right?
Sachin, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with him. I tend to agree with Amol. I think one is uh, even though cloud is not necessarily the answer to everything, but at the same time, it is a great alternative. Having said that, I think the expectation management has to be done in terms of what workloads actually you are trying to move it to cloud. So depending on that, I think you can set your expectations. But prior to that, I think what one important point Shailendra main talked about is about the calculation, as to, you have different ways to predict what kind of performance you can expect. And that's where, if you involve experts like Saurin, Shailendra, take their help, you will be able to precisely pinpoint as to what you can expect and what you cannot expect by moving from internal storage to cloud storage. So to that extent, I think you should set your expectations appropriately.
Thank you, Sachin and Amol, for answering that. Agreed. Expectation setting and some kind of journey mapping as to which are the data that is often queried upon, maybe which needs to be nearshore versus something which can be more offshore, maybe an answer to that as well. But overall, what we're hearing is they haven't really been facing a huge performance impact because of such a move. Thank you so much, Sachin and Amol. There's one more audience question, and maybe this is to Shailendra because it seems to be a Dell question. How safe is your platform's encryption method?
So that's I've answered that live already. So basically, when we look at this, the data encryption technology, so we use it is being done through the controller-based data as REST encryption, which means whenever data is encrypted, it is written on a disk. So whosoever, if the disk drives are lost, stolen, or failed, or maybe someone tried to do an unauthorized access, so it is prevented by rendering the drive unreadable without the encryption key within the storage system. So it's a Dell patented technology which is being used in our storage systems across.
Thank you, Shailendra. One more question here. Please suggest, apart from online backup, how can I store my backup which is disconnected from all systems, tape drive, etc.? Idea is to protect from ransomware. Ransomware attack can corrupt anything which is online.
So I'm a bit disconnected on this question, or rather, I have separate thought process. So to secure yourself, it is not, of course, one can go into a offline storage solutions, but then that's a conversion thing. And whenever a disaster happens, you want to use the data which is backed up. That becomes a challenge. So your downtime, your disconnection time goes up. Okay. So Dell has a solution where we call cyber vaulting, where you create a cyber vault, like locking that data which may not be attacked by the ransomware, and then it helps you do the cyber recovery. So people are talking about cyber protection. What Dell is today talking about is cyber vault and cyber recovery. And I would invite Sachin here, that because it's a user-based question also. So Sachin and Amol can also share their experience that offline backup is a gone are the days when people used to do offline backup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those are the olden days actually. So we have new ways of taking backups as such. So I agree with you, Shailendra, on that.
Absolutely. I missed some part because I got thrown out of this meeting because of connectivity issue. But I think gone are the days, right? When we used to tape drives and send it to safe storage, probably in bank lockers, right?
Yep.
These are the days which we have seen, right? Gone are the days, right? I agree with you. People are using all these probably hybrid storages, SAN storages, and even cloud, as someone mentioned, right? So I don't think we will ever have that kind of a era again.
I can add to what Sailendra said. I mean, cyber vaulting, I mean, what we also call as air gap, right?
Yep.
So basically, it's a disk-to-disk backup copy, but it disconnects from the network from time to time. So if there is an attack, it doesn't affect your copy over there. So I think that is the best way if you're on premises and you still want to protect yourself from cyber attack. Of course, you lose some data because till the time the network is connected, it doesn't copy again. But by and large, you will have most of your data on there.
Thank you. I think this is a very good audience we had today with some really interesting and insightful questions. It's been a great learning even for me, hearing from our speakers and some great topics we covered today. We covered what are the technologies, new age technologies that are available to address the question that we are addressing today in the era of big data, which is for storage. Then we talked about how data security and privacy is getting addressed with these solutions. We talked about how many of our organizations and enterprises today need to be in a hybrid environment or, like Amol said, multi-cloud environment, and how we can still tie and stitch this all together and what tools and technologies are available for that. We spoke about ROI because obviously all this comes with a huge investment. Not everyone has deep pockets, like I think Sachin sir mentioned. So we spoke about ROI, we spoke about Apex, flexible pay-as-you-go, flexible demand, right? How all of this can be met. I think we had a good set of discussions there. And we also talked about how storage is being leveraged by some real life use cases, which we heard from our speakers today, for whether it is predictive, prescriptive analysis, fraud analysis, right? AI, ML, right? Edge computing, some really nice use cases we heard today to bring to life what we're talking about. And I think it's been a huge learning and a very interesting, robust discussion. I hope it was useful for everyone. Thank you so much for a patient hearing, and thank you so much. Loud round of applause for all our speakers today. I think each one of you have done an excellent job answering my questions and the audience questions today. Thank you so much. Very well done, speakers. Back to you, Dimple.
Thank you, Sheena, for taking us through such an enlightening session, and it was definitely very perspective. And of course, it was an absolute pleasure to listen to such a fantastic discussion. And before we conclude, I'd like to express my gratitude to every one of our panelists for making the time to join us here and sharing their expertise with us. Thank you once again for joining this session on driving business value of storage, powered by Dell Technologies and #Infotech India. We look forward to seeing you all more for a future session. This is Dimple Bajwa signing off. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks, Sachin and Amal.
Thank you.
Stay safe, guys. Thank you.